Recording in progress.
Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? Hey, we want to welcome you to tonight live on Facebook. You know, the first thing I want to say is before we get into this message, we're going to be talking about trafficking. But the first thing I want to bring to our attention is many of us out there, we go vote. And we vote for a cause which we believe in. You know, me, myself, I vote for babies in the womb. That's what I vote for. It doesn't matter who's running. I vote for the babies in the womb. And I'm a little hurt knowing that there was a life change that happened this Sunday. And believe it or not, 60 people. 60 people. Now, you know what? I don't want to get angry. I don't want to point fingers. But let me ask you a question. It's amazing how you can do what you do behind closed doors. But when it's time to stand up for the truth, you become a coward. I'm just telling you like it is. I said, what's going to happen when the day comes when you really be persecuted for your faith? Will you run and hide? Or will you stand there boldly for Jesus Christ? I said, because you're going to have to start to make that choice. Because a lot of us, we sit and we say and we do, oh, I'm voting for this person because of the babies in the womb. But no, I'm not going out there to stand on no corner cold. Then what are you really doing? That's secret. No one knows what you do. The only way somebody's going to really know what you do unless you make a choice to go out there and stand. I make a stand every day as I walk with my Christian faith. And you can walk with me and see my Christian faith. I preach boldly about my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, no matter where I go. The same as we went down to Sheboygan and we stood firm for this trafficking. I went down there and gave up my time to sing for 2 hours. I donated it. And whatever proceeds came to me went to the foundation. Today we're going to be talking about that. You know, once again, I just want you to take it upon yourself because like I said, your church ain't going to tell you to go out there. You have to make that choice yourself. It's will you stand for those in the womb, or will you just keep voting behind the scene and be proudly about that? Because in that way, it's nothing. It's when you stand for those babies. Are you willing to do that? So with that said, I pray for each and every last one of you all before we start this message. I'm going to turn it over to my good friend, and he's going to give us some amazing pointers on this trafficking. And I pray to God that a lot of you all stand for that. Share this video because it's going to be powerful. What do you got for us?
Well, hello, my name is Charlie Wiley. I'm the founder of a nonprofit called Freedom Cry. My wife Jennifer and I started Freedom Cry in 2014. We didn't set out to be a nonprofit. We didn't set out to let's put a shingle out there and do something for ourselves. It wasn't that. What we found out was in our city, in Sheboygan, there was trafficking, human trafficking. We're talking tonight about human trafficking.
Wow.
Okay, so when we're talking about human trafficking, what our nonprofit does is work in the restoration of survivors of human trafficking. So we are in what we call the anti-trafficking movement. If you want to call it a movement, call it what you want, but it's anti-trafficking. And there's two sides. There's the restoration side and the rescue side. How many of you out there saw Sound of Freedom, the movie? That was a wonderful movie. It was a great portrayal of what rescuing is.
Wow. And
there's a lot of folks with highly skilled sets of skills that have done amazing things for our country overseas that are hunting these pimps down. Let's call it first of all, let's call it for what it is.
That's right. Keep it real.
Let's call it for what it is. It's a crime.
It is.
This is criminal. And we know that intellectually, but this is visceral. This is real. This is gut-wrenching. Okay? So keep in mind as kind of an overview, we are Freedom Cry, myself, my wife, and I, and the team that we have, the group that we have, wonderful groups of volunteers. We're all volunteers, okay? And we are in the restoration side of things, okay? I would start out probably just saying this. What is human trafficking?
Yeah, yeah. What is it?
Human trafficking has many forms. It's not just sex trafficking. It's not just labor trafficking. There's other types of trafficking. We're talking about organ harvesting. Can you believe it?
What?
Organ harvesting, where they drug people, and then in their unconscious state, they'll take out a kidney and put the kidney or the spleen on the black market. Profits, that's why.
This is because in my world, up until a few years ago, when I considered human trafficking, I always thought, well, that's something happens elsewhere. It's
In
either
foreign
in
countries.
or
Yeah,
overseas
foreign
and so
countries.
forth. But can you talk a little bit about the scope and the locality of this? This is a local problem as well, is
Yeah.
it not?
Absolutely. Here's the thing. How local is it? When we talk about scope, and we should talk about the scope of trafficking, this is a global crime. And it's been going on since time immemorial. Okay? But when we think of scope, we think of statistics. And we get a lot of folks that want to know about statistics. Okay? But here's the thing about statistics. They're just numbers, they're approximate, and they're not accurate. Whether it's government statistics, local statistics, which are even harder to verify. Okay? But the scope of, let's just talk about Wisconsin. All 72 counties had documented human trafficking cases. Now, Freedom Cry, our focus is not labor trafficking. Our focus is sex trafficking, working with survivors who have endured the horror of sex trafficking and bringing them back to restoration of who they are. Okay, that's the idea. That's what we're working in since 2014. A little bit about myself. How people ask me, how in the world did you get involved with this? How did you get involved with this? Back in 2010, I became a chaplain through an organization called the International Fellowship of Chaplains, and my name is Charlie, so I kind of walk into Charlie Chaplain.
Yes,
It's just
I like
one
it.
of the
I like
things
it.
I
I like
walk
it.
into. But I became a chaplain, and I also in 2010 I was at a conference with my church, and I met a gentleman who is from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. An amazing gentleman. The reason he was amazing was he stood in front of the podium, and he talked about human trafficking, and he said it this way. He said, "I'm in the business." And my next thought was, you better explain yourself, because I don't understand what you just said. He was in the business, but he wasn't a trafficker. What he was doing was going to the traffickers and for hundreds of dollars paying and buying their victims and driving them or flying them across the country to their homes, mostly children,
Whoa.
knocking on the door. Here's your daughter you haven't seen in 4 months.
What?
Wow.
That blew my mind, and that set me on this path. And you know how the Lord, you know what the Lord does? He lets things kind of work in you and work in you until there's all of a sudden there's a window that opens and you just step into this. And that's how we kind of got into that. And we just never looked back. There's a lot of things that happen. When we talk about scope and statistics, though, you have to talk about why. Most trafficking survivors, they don't self-identify. What we mean by that is they don't come up to us and say, "Help me, I'm a survivor of human trafficking and I need help."
Okay.
They don't understand what they've been through. They're beaten, they're deprived, and they're forced.
Wow.
Okay? And that's one of the definitions of human trafficking. If we're going to have, we have to have a definition. We have to have a baseline. The federal definition of trafficking, there's a law passed in 2000, the Trafficking Victim Protection Act, made human trafficking a federal crime and defined sex trafficking, now we're talking sex trafficking, as the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for the purpose of a commercial sex act in which the commercial sex act is induced by here's three things, and these are key: force, fraud, or coercion.
Wow.
Or in which the person induced is under 18. In other words, a minor being sold for sex is automatically considered a victim of trafficking. There's no such thing, folks, as a child prostitute. It doesn't exist. Any children in this that have been induced by force, fraud, coercion is automatically sex trafficking. Okay? And what we're talking about, force, fraud, coercion, those are the three pieces that law enforcement has to make the case for to be considered human trafficking. Okay? Wow. All 72 counties and all 11 tribes in Wisconsin have documented cases of human trafficking. Wow. 80% of trafficking in Wisconsin is sex trafficking. So now again, let's back up, zoom out a little bit. These are statistics. These are approximates. But let me tell you something. I mean, I have a little bit of a statistic here.
Okay.
That says, I mean, if we're going to find out some numbers, and everybody wants these. 2021, there were 445 total statewide allegations. Milwaukee County alone had 142. That's 32% of them were in Milwaukee County. 2020 was 430. 2019 is 474. But here's the thing. This is a crime where they don't self-identify. They don't come up to law enforcement. They're terrified of law enforcement. And they don't come up and they don't say, help me, I've been a victim of human trafficking.
Let me ask you something. In your judgment, and you mentioned 400 and some, that's the tip of the iceberg is what I'm understanding you be saying. What would your guess be as to what the real numbers are? We have no idea, obviously.
We don't have any idea.
It's got to be multiple times that, am I right?
Right. Here's a lot of components to it. Okay. When we started out, there was, and in one of those years, I think it was 2014, 2015, there was something that went out from law enforcement that said Sheboygan is the second most trafficked county in the state.
Whoa.
Okay. Milwaukee is always first. Madison is very high up there. But here's the thing. What if there was more in Wood County? What if there was more in, name a county? Look, St. Croix County.
Yes.
How do you know? How do you know for sure that in that year Sheboygan County was the second most? And why are we trying to get to the top? Why is it about numbers?
Yeah.
See, we don't deal in numbers. When we deal with sex trafficking survivors, we're dealing in human beings. We're dealing in lives.
That's right.
We're dealing with trauma. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood. We wrestle against trauma.
That's right.
Okay? And at every level of identity of a trafficking survivor, every level of identity has been torn down, beaten, and stomped on. And they've been rebuilt in the image and likeness of their trafficker.
They no longer have their own personality or identity.
Wow.
No.
They take it.
And when we first started, let me tell you, back to that gentleman in the front, his name was Rick Lombard. Back to the gentleman in the front of the room, when I first heard about this, he was from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. His first person that he rescued was a child, and it was in Appleton, Wisconsin.
What?
He was going all over the country. An amazing gentleman. He has since passed on with the Lord, but an amazing brother in the Lord. And you know what? He really set our path, for me anyway. It set my path to do what we do. And we didn't know how we were going to do things. So okay, now I'm going to get involved. What am I going to do? How does this work? Well, you know what? We went to a coffee house every couple Saturdays, and we just opened the doors. I think it was once a month, actually. We went and opened the door, rented it, opened the doors, and started talking to the community about it. Whoever walked in, we talked about what we were finding out. Statistics, yes, but we were telling them, you know what we were telling them? It was going on in this city. And just like they couldn't believe it, we couldn't believe it either. That's why we got out there and we sat down, we started talking to the community. And we generated a lot of interest in because this is wrong. People were astonished that it was going on in our city.
Wow.
And they were angry. And rightly so. Again, this is a crime. Back to that definition a little bit, and you can ask me too, whatever you want to ask.
I'm hesitant to interrupt you. You're
Go
on
ahead.
kind of a roll here, but
Go ahead.
What how do people get recruited into this? Because we have a picture of people being kidnapped off the street or brought
Is it
across the
runaway
border,
kids?
which happens. But there's other ways of being drawn into this,
Yeah.
and you know, and if we're going to be, and I'm looking at this. The reason we're doing this is to raise awareness so that we can all be more sensitive,
Right,
and
and
say,
aware of our
something's not right
surroundings.
about this picture. And now what am I going to do about it? What are the resources and how do I handle this? How are people tricked, coerced, blackmailed? How are they drawn into this?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. You know, there's a difference between blackmail and coercion. We have to get our definitions right if we're going to know what we're dealing with. Blackmail is a specific type of coercion. Again, force, fraud, or coercion. Blackmail involves a threat to reveal damaging or embarrassing information to extort money or force an action. You know, going to tell your secret unless you do this for me.
And social media plays a role in that.
Social media does too. Coercion is a broader term. So blackmail would be under the coercion umbrella, if you will, using threats, intimidation, or pressure to force someone to act against their will. A coercion can encompass a wider range of threats, including physical harm, psychological abuse, and threats to others' rights. And I'm telling you, that's all of that is included in it. Social media is the majority of the way.
That's the hookup.
It is hooked up.
How does that work? Give us an example of how somebody would be drawn into that through social media, because I've heard some stories on this, and it seems absolutely logical, but I never thought about it.
Yeah, the reason is vulnerability. Have you ever been vulnerable? Have you ever been vulnerable?
No, I know just what you're saying.
For sure.
Vulnerability. It's not a socioeconomic thing. Vulnerability is not a gender thing, a race thing. But vulnerability is a human thing. And when we're talking about human trafficking, and folks, I won't even call them folks. Let's call them what they are: criminals, pimps. What traffickers will do is focus on the vulnerability, because where the vulnerability leads, profits are. So that's why they'll go out. Here's an example. Social media. 2018 study conducted by the organization Thorn said that a minor sex trafficking survivors found that 55% of minors that were sex trafficking survivors found their trafficker online.
You hear that?
55%, including social media, text messages, and mobile apps.
You hear that?
And these were minors.
Listen to that.
In the same study, 63% of traffickers use online channels to boost trust and intimacy with their victims. So most of it is online.
Oh, yes.
The snatch and grab that you might think or you see in Hollywood, that's very rare. It has happened,
Right.
but that's rare.
They create a relationship almost like
That's
And
the thing.
then they draw them into doing something compromising, and then they've got them.
And then they've got them, and that's what we saw. There's a lot of stories, and I want to make something clear here.
And we're talking about people's children in Middle
Yes.
America, wherever, because you're vulnerable on social media. You don't have to be a ghetto dweller. You don't have to
No.
be poor. You can
No.
be rich. You can be college educated. If you're on social media and you have a vulnerability and they find out what button to push,
Right.
then they draw you in, find a way to compromise you, and then they've got you. Am I right?
Absolutely. Some of the online now I want to make something clear as we go forward too. I'm not law enforcement. I'm not part of that. But you know what? I want just a shout out to our law enforcement community. They are the tip of the spear. They are the subject matter experts. That they are the ones that go in and rescue. Okay? And they have stories. And I've heard some stories. So what I won't do is attribute what I've heard, knowing like I know all their details. Only
Right,
they know
right.
the details. Only they know their cases. Okay? And they do amazing work. I can't say enough about it, about law enforcement. The tip of the spear. But I would say this. Many years ago, a girl, minor, said, all I want is a spaghetti dinner. It'd be wonderful. Well, guess who saw that? Guess who responded to that? Guess where they went to the restaurant? Then he took her up to Mall of America, bought her all kinds of good things, whatever she wanted. Then they drove back, and he said, "You owe me."
Wow. What?
And you know what? That's an example. Another one. I'm so mad at my mom and dad. They grounded me, and I'm mad. Oh, really? Well, you know what? Let's talk. Let's talk about it.
Okay.
And they build those relationships.
Yes.
Sucked it in. Again, that vulnerability to us is a scary place, right? Vulnerability is a scary place. Traffickers feed on that.
You know, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing once they start to do that, they'll probably use other young girls to draw in other girls.
Absolutely.
I would think.
So they're stripped of their identity, right? Every level of identity is taken from them, and they're rebuilt in the image and the likeness of the trafficker. And then they're being forced to be raped.
Wow.
Multiple times a day.
Wow.
I have directly heard, seen victims. We've met them through the years. One, she was 14. She had an $800 quota on her head every day. Every day she had to produce $800 or she would be beaten. I'm not making these things up. But again, law enforcement information and what we do.
Here's the illumination for me, because when I think of trafficking, I think of prostitution, and I think of the red light districts, and I think of the ghettos, and I think of the cheap motels, and having like a circuit where you go and you're sitting in a bar and you make a connection with a pimp or you do all this. This is not like this.
No.
This is our neighbors and our neighbors' children who are being drawn into a situation where their life is destroyed and they're blackmailed and controlled forevermore until they either what are the statistics on this? Actually getting out, getting your life restored, as opposed to either burning out and committing suicide or dying of an overdose.
Well, again, statistics and approximations, but about the national average is 8 or 9 times they'll go back to the life before they finally said, if I don't get out, I'm going to die.
I'm gonna die.
8 or 9 times they'll go back.
Wow. Because they don't know nothing else.
And they don't know. Here's the thing: the fear of the unknown is greater than the fear of the horror they're living, because the horror they're living is predictable to them. They know what to expect. It's horrible, but they know what to expect.
They know what to expect.
The unknown is more terrifying.
Terrifying.
But after 8, generally, I mean, obviously, again, statistics. I don't like statistics.
That's like a man who's been in prison for so long, he refused to get out.
Yeah.
Because he knows the system so well that when the time to get out, he don't want to go. So he'll commit a crime to go back in.
Yep.
Do you have any sense of how many of these victims are the product of broken homes where they're vulnerable from an unstable nuclear family?
Absolutely. I mean, unstable nuclear family. How many husbands are addicted to porn? Is that an unstable family?
Yes, it is.
Porn is a cause and an effect of sex trafficking. Okay? I mean, broken families, I have it here somewhere. It's 50. I think it's 55% came from were sexually abused as children.
That's having your nuclear family broken up is destabilizing right there. It
Vulnerability.
takes the rug out of your life. And I remember when we were doing the jail ministry with these juveniles, I used to ask every time I went in, I said, how many of you are living with both of your natural parents? And I asked that question 800 times before I quit asking it, and the answer of how many were in a stable nuclear family with both natural parents, 26 out of 800.
Yeah, it was very low.
Now that was a high number because there was redundancy. A lot of these kids cycled back through and would have answered the question more than once. But if it was 4 or 5 or 6,
it wasn't a lot.
Only 26. That tells you right there that there's a cause and effect,
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, what I'm trying to get at here.
Yes.
You know, you talk about vulnerabilities, and you have somebody who doesn't have a solid foundation at home, and then all they got to do is find the right buttons to push.
You know, but you know, also you got to sit back and you got to say a lot of these parents out there need to be accountable too, because a lot of parents don't pay attention to their children.
Right.
They give them the phones, they give them the this, and they roam and they this and that. You know, you got to start to wonder when you start to hear about so many kids who are missing. Where are they missing? That's the key. You know, your daughter didn't run away and it gets to the point where nobody go looking no more. But man,
Ted Gunderson, former regional director of the FBI in California, after he retired, he made it his life's work to expose trafficking. And he claimed, this was back in the 90s, that there was hundreds of thousands of children disappearing in America at that time, and people didn't notice it. And he was verified to me. I was on social media, and I made that point because somebody brought up a point about trafficking, and I said, you need to look up this video by this guy, Ted Gunderson, who was exposing all this. And somebody chimed in and said, Bob, you're exactly right, because one of my relatives worked for Ted Gunderson with the FBI and verified exactly what you're saying, and what he said was actually going on. And that was back in the 90s. And the thing that scares me most about this is these are not marginal people that are being picked up off the street. These are, you know, this could be your kids that go to church on Sunday and
right.
and are on the honor roll and all that, and all they have to do is go on social media and have somebody find the button to push, and their life is destroyed.
You know what the most amazing thing is, and you hate to say it, but just imagine all those children who came across on the border.
Yep.
Yeah. When nobody, that's a lottery for a trafficker. When you start to think about all those kids who came in with no parents, little girls, little boys, thousands. I'm talking about 100-some thousand, and they said they haven't over 100-some thousand. They said they didn't find none of them.
Well, here's the thing,
and the problem you got to wonder is, where are they?
3-4 years ago, they were saying 65,000. Then when Trump came into office and they started tracking it, it was up to 350,000. And Christy Noem, Director of Homeland Security, says, we don't know, but it could go as high as 700,000. And these kids were trafficked on purpose. They're a commodity.
Yes, they were.
They're a product.
Yes, they was.
And see, we've even seen, and to the point where some of the tattoos, what they'll do is they'll brand the ones they're trafficking. Many of them, not all of them, but many of them brand them. Some of them even brand them with barcodes.
Oh, wow.
Tattoos.
Yeah.
So you know who is who.
This when I said it was visceral in the beginning and real, I meant it. This is beyond the pale. You and I don't think this way.
No.
Let me tell you something further. All those kids across the border, and who knows the stories? The Lord knows all of it.
Right.
He sees all.
He sees all.
But $238 billion globally. $238 billion was made as an annual revenue
That they can calculate. And
for trafficking in general, including labor, and $238 billion in 1 year.
Yeah. And they ain't paying taxes on that.
The national U.S. banking industry makes about that in a year. The entire banking industry.
This is actually as bigger than drugs. From
Well,
what I've heard.
and when we do a lot of presentations, and what we've said for years, and you know, it's going to overtake it. Because here's the thing: if I sell you drugs, Bob, I got to go get more.
Yeah.
If I sell a human being to you,
you can have it for a long time. The profit is better.
5 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 12 o'clock.
And if you do it at a young age, you can get many years out of that.
It's horrible.
And when they're burned out, finally, you can market their organs.
Pretty much, yeah.
I'm not saying
If
that
you
happens
can.
all the time, but it does happen, does it not?
We're connected to safe homes in Hawaii. When they're done with their victims, they throw them in the lava pit.
Wow.
This is the world we live in.
The average age of entry, this is national average, is 12 for boys, 13 for girls. So where is your target? 14 is freshmen in high school, 14, 15.
Right.
Your target is, in Sheboygan, they were targeting elementary, middle, and high school. But the national average is middle school. Now do you see the need for that nuclear family?
Wow.
The need is and so dad's addicted to porn, you know, as an example, just generalizing,
Right.
right? That's a breakdown in the family. 55% of women who had been trafficked were molested as children.
Yeah, I could see that.
70%, we're going on these statistics, 70% of survivors struggle with suicide ideation when they get out. 70%. And we have met survivors that we worked with that are wonderful, that were trying their best, and they're not with us.
It's tough. It's tough.
We have a lot of good success stories too.
Wow.
But there are stories that ended horrible.
So how do we protect against this? What do we look for?
Well, there's a lot of things. You know, if you don't know what's normal, how do you know what to look for?
That's true.
One of the things that we've done in the past is, you know, we do a lot of presentations, and there's a lot of different types of folks in the crowd. There's craft people, and we have an outreach with using crafts that we do to bring awareness. But there's also veterans that come, and they have special set of skills. They don't want to do crafts, I'll tell you that.
Right.
Here's the thing. They have special sets of skills. So what we did is we set up kind of like let's call it a watch your block type party. And it's not a party, but they set up their own, we call it the safety team.
Right.
And we let them do what they wanted to do and how they wanted to do it, to try to look for, you know, these things to happen. You know what? It was very hard for them, and they're trained by combat and how to look for things, and it was hard for them. You know how we got through that? We talked to a survivor who has been out of the life for many years. She's amazing. She's what we call a thriver. Once they've stabilized, got that identity back, and gotten built back up, and it takes time.
Right.
And you can't. Every journey is different. We are in the not business. We are in the weeds of the journey of that one, right? And that's who we work with. When they come to a place of restoration that the Lord has done in their life, we call that thriving.
Yes.
She came and talked to our group, our safety team, and she said, "You're doing it all wrong.
Oh, whoa.
Do you know what's normal? So you're looking at a building. That's great. Do you know that person, that woman comes out at 4:30 every day to have a cigarette? Is that normal? Do you know that? Because once you know what's normal, you'll begin to see what's abnormal."
Okay. What's normal for them, you mean?
Right. Whatever the scenario. And that's true for your children. Our children.
Okay.
You know, what is abnormal? Know who your kids hang out with.
Yes.
Most online, you kids don't know who they are. They're really friendly, but they don't know who they are.
So
No.
if you're seeing changes in patterns or personalities or behavior or attitudes in your children, that's a key.
Absolutely. We teach, when we do these presentations, we teach the term hard target. Your children need to become hard targets, okay? What we mean by that is they need to exude confidence, not arrogance, and a lot of kids are arrogant,
Right.
but confidence. Here's the example that we've used in the past. It's now the malls of today are kind of going away, but it's true in general with groups of kids, okay? Now traffickers, again, they're looking for vulnerability. So when they don't see confidence in the eyes, that's what happens. Here's what happens. There's a group of kids, and they're walking, and they're being watched. They're going to look at the ones in the back. The ones in the front are confident, but the stragglers in the back,
Those are the ones.
and they'll approach them, and they'll say, "Hey, pretty girl like you, what you doing out here? You know, what brings you out here?" Something like that.
Right.
If the girl looks them in the eye, they're confident. Move on. If they look down,
Right.
because of their home life and their struggles in their home life and all these things, you know, the pressures that when we were kids, you know the pressures of teenage years. If they look down, they've got them.
They got them.
And it means that they're going to focus on that vulnerability, and they're going to dial in on it, and they're going to exploit it. Because this is what that is. That's exploitation.
Wow. And that's why you got to even be careful with the way you speak to your kids when you belittle them. And a lot of parents do that. They belittle them. You know, you're this, you're that. And sometimes you can make a kid feel so unworthy that when someone does come along and lifts them up,
you bet.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like I said, sometimes a kid can look to another person as a parent,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
that's my dad, or that's and that. You're not my dad. You know, so they know the open areas to draw them in at. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Wow.
As a Christian, and this one is going to come out of left field, but I would come at this and think, well, I just need to present the gospel to them and God will heal them. It does not work that way, does it?
Well, they do need to present the gospel to them, but it is this is called what we call complex trauma,
Right.
or complex PTSD. Now, this is PTSD. Okay, there's PTS, post-traumatic stress syndrome,
Right.
and post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay.
Okay, when we're talking about human trafficking, we're talking about complex PTSD.
Yeah.
We're talking many times we've seen, multiple personalities, Stockholm syndrome.
Their personality is broken.
It's broken.
Yeah.
And the thing is, oh, he was a boyfriend. He just beat me, but I made him a lot of money. That's why they don't self-identify. He was my boyfriend.
Yeah.
I made him, we were a family. I made him a lot of money.
Right.
They've got their mind so changed that they don't even know who they are.
Right.
And here's the thing, when they get rescued, and again, law enforcement, shout out to every law enforcement officer, you're professionals, you're subject matter experts, and you do your work awesome, okay? But when they get rescued, they go from horrible high drama to nothing. It's peace. There's
Right.
nothing going on. Guess what happens? When you've been highly traumatized like that, and you come into a place of nothing, you create drama.
That's
'Cause
right.
You're only going to give what you've been given.
That's right.
You cannot give
Wow.
what you do not have. And so this is part of the restoration piece.
Wow.
God wants to give all of that back, that identity back, and build that in
Right.
them. We are just the instruments to help that happen. It's
Wow.
amazing. So making your kids hard targets. Okay, confidence through the eyes. Here's another way to make them a hard target. Walking down the street and looking at the phone. How many kids look at their phones?
Yes.
They're on their phones all the time.
Right.
But they're not looking around them. They're not
They're
looking
surrounded.
careful. They are not looking. Guess what? That's a vulnerability. Now, they might be confident kids,
Right.
but it's vulnerability when you're not seeing your peripherals, when you're not seeing what's in front of you. You got to make yourself and your kids hard targets. It's not a negative term, it's a positive. You want to monitor their social media on their phones. That's a hard part for a lot of parents.
Yeah.
Because that's the holy grail to these kids.
Yes.
But you have to get in there. You have to know, where are they going on their phones? How many phones do they have?
Who are they talking to?
Traffickers will give them phones. You know what? We did a no, it wasn't us. One of the detectives in Sheboygan had done, I believe it was in 2016. The kids were just getting out. This was at a middle school. She did presentations about human trafficking to a lot of the school kids and the staff. And this was middle school. They were getting, I think it was just right in June, right before they were releasing for summer. And several of the kids, after the presentation, came up to her and said, "Why are these guys with gold teeth handing us cell phones and telling us to tell us the names of the girls in our class?" Wow. This was middle school.
Wow.
And this was right before summer was letting out. What happens in summer? The schedule loosens up. The kids are home, but yet they can go out and do what they do. There's a lot less structure.
So I'm a 14-year-old child, and I'm in what I consider a stable household. And, I've got my friends, my social life. I go to church on Sundays with my family, and everything is good. But somebody finds a vulnerability, and gets me to do something online that is shame-inducing.
Mm-hmm.
They then have control. I still go on with my life, but I'm not the same person anymore because now I'm still being trafficked behind the scenes. This happens, and you're still in your household, and your parents may not even know, except that you're now depressed and your personality changes, but you're still their normal kid because they don't realize what's going on. Is this a scenario that happens?
Absolutely. It's called sextortion.
Mm.
It can be any type of extortion, but typically it's sextortion.
Sure.
A picture. Send me a picture.
Yeah.
Once you send that picture, then they have you.
Yeah.
And there has been multiple. And I don't like numbers. I don't like to deal in numbers all the time. We deal in people. But there's been numerous children that have committed suicide because of that. The devastation and of the shame that they feel that they can't get out.
And they're still in their household. They still go to school, but they've got a whole secret life now that's grounded in blackmail and control, and the parents can't figure out why Johnny's depressed.
Right.
And Johnny doesn't want to talk about it.
And that's part of the this is how we protect our children. You got to notice those things.
Why?
Are they bringing home unusual wealth without explanation?
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, I can see that.
You know, pretty jewelry. Did they have an extra phone? Why do you need an extra phone? Who are you calling? The loss of sleep, physical markings, erratic behavior. You know, the goal here's the thing. The Lord created what we call created order. First he did this, then he did this, then he did this. He didn't do the third thing first and then the first.
Right.
He did the first thing first, the second thing, and then the
Right.
third thing. So we call that created order. The anatomy of created order in a home is this. Communication is needed.
That's right.
Because it builds relationship.
That's right.
And out of relationship, all the fruit that is going to be born that the Father is glorified by is because of getting the communication
That's
and
right.
the relationship right.
I agree.
And that's created order. And that's created order in the family.
Wow.
So what does a trafficker do? He disrupts that communication and through lies and extortion, exploitation, and then he gets to the relationship and he switches it to himself, and then he exploits it. Okay, this is what the enemy has done, but thus far and no more.
Wow.
It's This is again. Let's zoom out a little bit. This is a global crime. It's actually, it's interesting. You've heard of smuggling.
Yeah.
And you've heard of, now we're talking about trafficking. Did you know there's a difference?
What's the difference?
So smuggling is the crossing of a border illegally.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So you can cross the border illegally, but that's not trafficking. Trafficking, smuggling is the violation of a boundary.
Okay.
Trafficking is a violation of a human being.
Person.
Right.
In other words, trafficking is a crime against humanity.
Yes, it is.
Oh, no question.
Right. And that's an important thing. And you brought up earlier about the red light district in Amsterdam and prostitution. Now, here's the thing. If there's a pimp, it's never prostitution. It's always, that pimp is taking the money. If he's getting a cut, she's doing it for him. Whether that it's a child or an adult. Trafficking, this is trafficking. Most what we think is prostitution is actually trafficking.
Oh.
And the way that law enforcement has, and it's always an evolving thing, but it is, in the 11 years that we've been doing in this work, across the country, law enforcement is understanding now, but back then it was, well, they're all prostitutes, which means they're committing a crime, which means throw them in jail.
Okay, yeah.
But now, especially, we have a really good DA in our county, and there's other good DAs in the county that they realize, wait, this is a crime. They're actually victims.
They're victims. They're not just out there being prostitutes.
No, they don't get to keep the money.
Right.
If you keep the money, now there is prostitution,
Right.
but they don't get to keep the money. That's not prostitution.
But the real light that came on for me is that we have this image that this is prostitution and it's red light districts and all that, but it's actually way more subtle.
There's something else going on behind the
It's
scene.
happening in what we would consider normal middle class, lower class, upper class homes.
Absolutely.
They're trafficking people right out of their own homes, and sometimes they're still living in that nuclear family, but they're living a nightmare.
Let me tell you something. And again, I want to make it clear. Law enforcement cases, law enforcement knows the details of every story they've dealt with. We don't have all those details. We're on the restoration side. But back in our neck of the woods, there was a high school. Mom and dad dropped their child off for school. Pulled up like every parent does in the morning. See you later. Drops you off. She leaves. Mom leaves. A white van comes, picks her up. Took her to Green Bay for the day. Came back right before Mom was picking her up. And that was busted. They caught the guys. That was trafficking.
Sure, well, yeah.
And so yeah, you know, they just went to school like any other day. They came home like any other day. They had mom and dad there like every day. You know, ate dinner.
Right.
And this was a high socioeconomic scenario.
So if I'm a parent and I
Wow.
see changes in the personality of my son or daughter, that isn't necessarily them growing pains and going into adolescence. This could be something much more sinister in the background that shame is inducing them to keep hidden while they're living this double life and being controlled. And this is not a rare or random thing. This is basically all over now. Am I right?
Wow.
Well, it's the second most profitable business in the world next to drug trafficking.
And gaining it on it. Yeah.
So you got to know, we have to know our children. We have to know we're responsible for them. And I don't need to tell you that. We know that. We're responsible for them. We need to get into the weeds of their life. And it's messy. And it's not fun. And it's easier to turn on that TV and say, you know what? I don't need to deal with it today. It's easier to do that. But what are your kids listening to? What interests them? What excites them? What gets them out of the bed in the morning? What are their goals? What are their thoughts? Is there anything abnormal in that? Now, we don't want to... Here's another thing we teach. When we do these presentations. In Sheboygan, trafficking has happened at the marina. Trafficking has happened at the lighthouse. Trafficking has happened at Walgreens. Trafficking has happened at situations, right? Different situations. We have 10 miles of beach in Sheboygan. Trafficking has happened on the beach. Trafficking has happened a lot of places. What we don't want parents to do, it's all out there. Everything's horrible. Let's just go insular and just never go out.
Right.
You know what? The traffickers won.
Yep.
We can't let them do that. We tell them, go to the beach, go to the marina, enjoy the benefits of where you live. Don't let this stop you. Just be aware.
Be aware.
You know, we all honor the flag. Pledge allegiance. We love America. We're patriots, and rightly so. But do we honor the red flags when they appear?
Yeah.
We need to honor the red flag. We may see a red flag. How many times you walk into a situation and you're like, something's off. Something's definitely not right.
Right.
Yep.
What do? You know, that's real. There's substance to that.
Here's the thing, and I was just going to go there and because you had mentioned this to me some months ago. If we sense that something's off, your admonition is do not try and intervene.
Correct.
What do we do? Because here's the thing. If I think something's off, you know, they say that, you know, fight or flight, but it's not fight or flight. It's fight, flight, or freeze. And most people freeze. They do nothing. And so I sense something's off. I don't know what to do. I don't want to intervene. And so I just kind of look the other way. What are we supposed to be doing when we sense something's off? Who do we call?
Well, that's a great question, okay? First of all, the reason we don't want to go directly involved, you may not get hurt, but they might.
They might.
And I want to be clear here. We're not just talking about girls and women. Men and boys are also trafficked. This is real stuff. It's not just, again, let me just, before I go there, I want to just zoom out one last time here. I want to zoom out and say this. There is no profile that you can put or have what a trafficker will look like. Okay? There's no profile. You can't say, well, this is the type of person that will be a trafficker. There's no profile for a victim. Well, this is the type of person that will be a victim. And here's the driver. The reason we're sitting here today talking about this is because of the buyer. If there was no buyer, this wouldn't be a problem.
This is a commodity.
It's a commodity. There's no profile. Well, this is the type of person that will buy. So you're dealing with a crime against humanity, a global crime against humanity that has no profile, no set for surefire profile for a trafficker, the criminal, for the victim, the survivor, and for the buyer, the driver of all of it. Okay? So when you see something, when that red flag goes up, you want to honor that flag. How do you honor that flag? The reason you don't get directly involved certainly is so that you don't get hurt. But she's going to get hurt. If you get involved, what they do is they gaslight. You caused that. If you didn't say that, or if you weren't there, and they put it on them, and then they get hurt worse.
Right.
So we don't want to get directly involved. So what do? If you see direct danger, what do we all do? When we're in life, we call 911. If you see directly, this is going on, okay, I'm dialing 911. That's pretty given. But you can, if it's not direct danger where you're seeing someone get hurt or anything like that, but you just sense something's off, there's two things you can call. You can call the National Human Trafficking Hotline. For those of you who have a pen, it's 888-373-7888. That's the National Trafficking Hotline. The good part of that is you can remain anonymous. You can also text it. Okay? Now you can't take pictures and send it. They don't take that. Okay? But you can call them anonymously and report what you see. What's good about that is it's not a surefire always thing, but many times what they will do, the National Trafficking Hotline will do, is call the local PD.
Right.
And give the information, and now you've connected the dots. Just by anonymously giving it out. Now, just the 2025, I wanted to bring this out too. A few months ago, the nonprofit organization Safe House Project launched an innovative anti-trafficking app called Simply Report. The name of the app, if you look for it, is called Simply Report. It empowers users to safely, anonymously, and effectively report instances of suspected human trafficking. Okay, so if you see something that's off, someone, maybe an adult has walked in with a younger child, and there's a lot of, he appears to be controlling, or an adult. Two adults walk in, a man and a woman, and the man appears to be controlling, through subtleties, but you're picking it up because that's the red flag.
Right.
That could be. You don't know, and the thing is, you don't have to know.
Right.
We're not asking you to figure it out. We're asking you to just call. Call the hotline, get this app, download it. The app combines AI filters and human oversight to properly vet and direct tips to appropriate authorities, as well as to connect trafficking survivors to the organization's expansive network of safe homes.
And what is that app again?
It's called Simply Report.
Simply Report.
The CEO of it, her name is Christy Wells. She said in a statement, while the current hotline was a valid solution at the turn of the century, meaning the 2000s, trafficking criminals have evolved leveraging modern-day tools and technology, and so must we. One of those things with that is, did you know that in 2025, if you take the full volume of the internet, everything that's the whole World Wide Web, okay, 2025 is the first year that over half is AI. So what kind of, if I'm in the business of profits, and globally it makes $238 billion a year, what am I going to do? Am I going to use AI tools? They have AI tools that will flirt with you online.
Yeah, I know. Oh, it's dangerous.
And so your child is not even talking to a human, and the trafficker is watching and doing it through AI and hooking them in.
Yeah, I can see that. I could definitely see that.
So they buy a program, and
yes, yes.
And the program attracts them, gets
Oh,
them
yes.
all primed, and then they just come in at the end and push a button. There's something I want to try out on you, because this was reported to me a couple of years ago, and I think Harris and I talked about it online at one point. But there was a restaurant on one of the local highway corridors here, and there's a couple truckers that came in and were tipping very well the younger servers, and said, "Do you want to come out and look at our truck?" And they said, "Oh, you know." And so they lured them out, looked at the truck, took some pictures, and then they left, and said, "But we'll be back through here." And they claimed to be from, I think, California. One of the servers that was drawn into this, apparently her dad was a cop and got suspicious, came back, and what they finally deduced was, first of all, the truck was not from California, was stolen. I don't know that they ever caught the guys, but they suspected they were going to come back, and what they did with the pictures in the meantime, they were putting them online and soliciting bids,
Yes.
so they could come back and snatch the kids. Does that make sense to you, that's
Absolutely.
that's the
does
kind
make
of thing
sense.
that happens? This is a local restaurant, and it's in one of the corridors that you indicated a couple years ago when I first met you. You said that, and the one that surprised me, I mean, Highway 41, one would expect would be a corridor, but you said Lake Michigan.
Well,
is a
it's
huge
the
corridor.
I-94 corridor.
Okay.
So Madison, I-90. The bottom line is it goes up from Mexico and all the way through into Canada. From
Well,
here, it's going to
so
be
do
same.
and so do the Great Lakes. You can go all the way from Indiana to the Canadian border, and there's very little law enforcement out there that's going to stop a tanker or whatnot if you have people on it. Am I right?
Yep, and that's more
Wow.
international.
Wow.
But yeah, the cartels, they're going to go from, Mexico up through Mexico, just like they came in as illegals crossing the border, being smuggled.
Yeah.
Okay, but the trafficking, I mean, it's the corridor is the I-90 and 94, 41, going up into the Twin Cities and then up into Canada. Again, a global problem, a
Yeah.
global crime.
So before we end this video, what would you want to say to those folks on the other side? What would be your main point? I'm guessing you want to give some kind of contact information
Sure.
on here, and but what would be your final statement?
Well, let me tell you, Freedom Cry, our website is Freedom Cry Inc. INC, like incorporated, freedomcryinc.org. And you can go on the website, you'll see some of the things that we're doing, some of the events that we're doing, and things like that. There's a donate button. We'd appreciate your financial assistance if the Lord moves you to do so, because this takes money to do, and we're all volunteers. The other thing would be if you want to contact us and connect with us, we'd love for that. There's a form right on our website you can fill out, and whether you want to have a presentation that we can come and speak to a group that you have, or if you just want to have questions in general, you can contact us that way. That's how you would reach us. Here's the thing. In closing, I would say this: Christians, it's time. It's time to step up out of the weeds. And just like Bob was, and you were mentioning early in the call, we have to get out of the weeds, and we have to get out of our homes, and we have to get involved.
Yes.
We are always looking for people to pray for us.
Amen.
But it's one thing if I tell you, Bob, I'm going to pray for you,
Yeah.
and Harrison, I'm going to pray for you, but then I don't talk to you,
Right.
and I don't have a relationship with you.
Right.
It's another when you connect with us and ask us, what can we pray for?
Right.
Let's call next week or next month. Let's have connection.
Right.
Again, that communication builds that relationship. Okay? The way you build communication is we get out of those weeds and we get involved. Well, how I don't know the first thing of how to get involved. You know what? Neither did we. But there was a specific set of events that happened, and here we are 11 years later. We're volunteers. Okay? This means that it conflicts with some of the things. We have choices that we make. Then when we do volunteer work, we have choices that we make. So those choices that we used to make, or we still have to make, sometimes can conflict with our volunteer choices that we make. And so it's a prioritization. What's first? Here's what happens. We call it finding your lane, or I call it finding your lane. What is your lane in this global problem? How can you possibly enter this global problem and work against it in the anti-trafficking field? Okay? You step into the water. And here's the thing. I don't know the skill sets you have. I don't know the talents you have, but you do.
Mm-hmm.
And you can bring those as you step into the water and out of the weeds and get out and volunteer and work in the anti-trafficking field. Here's what happens. You are the one who knows your skills and your talents, and you step into that water. What happens is eventually, if you stay there and you keep working at it and you don't leave the post, what happens is the lane folds up and says, you know what? This is a global problem, but this is where I start and this is where I stop. All this inside of that, that's my lane, and I can do this.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If it's, if it's social media, helping on social media, if it's IT, if it's rescuing, if it's whatever it is, you can help.
Mm.
And you
But-
don't have to be all things to all people. Just find your skill set and your gift and take that first step into the water.
That's right.
Mm.
Thank you so much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that this message was powerful. Feel free to share the message. And like I say, this trafficking is no different than fighting for abortion. You got to step out of the weeds. You really got to
take a stand.
You got to take a stand. I mean, just voting and hoping he's going to fix it, it don't work like that. You have to stand firm in what you believe. Don't be ashamed to boast in Jesus Christ. You can't be ashamed. You must be able to stand up. Otherwise, put your Bible away, don't go to church, and do it in secret. But if you're going to represent the truth and you're going to stand for the truth, it's going to take for you to cross that line and not worry about what people think or what people are going to do. Just stand boldly. Greater is he that is in us than he that's in the world. So
Amen.
Why should we fear?
That's right.
It's just men. God sees all things.
Amen.
He's capable of fixing a lot of things, but he wants us to make our step first. You know what I mean? You need to make a step, the same as we all are making steps here. So take this message and share it and be aware of what's going on. I pray and blessings to you all, and I hope this message pierces your heart. In Jesus Christ's name, I want to say amen and thank you all.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Charlie.
Yep. Thank you, Charlie.
How'd that go?
I thought